Consider, if you will, the humble seed. To the untrained eye, it is inert, small, powerless, but within its shell lies a mathematical inevitability, a blueprint for expansion that, given enough time, can move mountains and pierce the clouds. In the world of finance, there is a force just as silent and just as transformative. It has been called the eighth wonder of the world. It is the engine of the elite, yet it is available to the common man. It is compound interest. To understand this phenomenon, we must first strip away the complexity of the modern market and look at the raw mechanics of growth. At its core, compounding is the principle of interest on interest. It is a cycle of reinvestment where the gains from your capital begin to earn their own gains. It is the time value of money in its most aggressive form. Imagine a single penny, doubled every day for 30 days. For the first 2 weeks, the progress is unremarkable. On day 15, you have barely enough to buy a modest lunch. But then, the hockey stick curve begins to turn vertical. By day 30, that single cent has transformed into over $5 million. This is the long tail of compounding, a period where growth ceases to be linear and becomes exponential. Look at the titans of our age. Warren Buffett, perhaps the most famous practitioner of this patient art, did not build his empire overnight. In fact, a staggering 90% of his vast fortune was generated after his 65th birthday. He did not find a magic shortcut. He simply allowed the engine to run longer than anyone else. He understood that in the mathematics of wealth, time is a more powerful variable than the amount of money he began with. To harness this force, one must understand its components. The principle, your initial seed, the rate of return, the sunlight that feeds it, and the time horizon, the decades of patience required for the harvest. Tools like the Rule of 72 allow us to peek into the future, revealing that an investment returning 7% will double every 10 years. But this growth is fragile. It requires an environment of efficiency. There are predators in this ecosystem. Management fees are the silent killers of compounding. A seemingly small 2% fee can, over 40 years, erode half of your potential wealth. It is a reverse compound that works against the investor. This is why figures like Jack Bogle championed the index fund, minimizing the friction so that the investor, rather than the institution, captures the full power of the market's tide. Yet, if the mathematics are so certain, why are so few truly wealthy? The answer lies not in our ledgers, but in our biology. Evolution has wired the human brain for hyperbolic discounting, a fancy term for our primal urge to choose a small reward today over a massive fortune tomorrow. We are hunters and gatherers, conditioned to eat the seed rather than plant the forest. To compound wealth is to perform a psychologically unnatural act. It requires us to ignore the latte factor debates and the noise of the daily news cycle, focusing instead on the horizon. We must also contend with the sequence of returns and the creeping shadow of inflation. A portfolio that grows in nominal dollars but loses purchasing power is a hollow victory. True wealth building requires tax-efficient vehicles, the Roth IRAs and 401ks, which act as a glass house, protecting the growing sapling from the cold winds of capital gains taxes. The path to abundance is not a sprint. It is not even a marathon. It is a state of perpetual patient motion. You do not need to be a genius of Wall Street to participate. You only need the discipline to start and the fortitude to stay out of the way. The math is indifferent to your status, your background, or your education. It is a universal law, as cold and as reliable as gravity. The clock is already ticking. The question is no longer whether compounding works, but whether you have the courage to let it work for you. Plant the seed and wait.